Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Given that technical issue, we're going to start again. I'm going to make the recording announcement again, and I'm going to make the other announcement that I made. I'd like to inform everyone that Falmouth Community Television, also known as FCTV, and Sean Driscoll, the authority's communications director, are making audio and video recording of today's meeting. Is anyone else who's making audio or video recording, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon on the Zoom dashboard, or if you're joining by telephone, by pressing *9 on the keypad. And when you're recognized, please state your name for the record. I think Louisa and Anki, I'll sort. Is there anyone else?
Yes. Kai.
Kai Quigley, the Inquirer and Mayor.
Thank you. And Jason.
Good morning, everyone. Jason Grazia Day, Nantucket Current.
Thank you. Okay, we're good.
Okay, thank you. I also want to make a statement regarding public comment. Public comment is just that. The board is always interested in listening to public comment. Following the lead of a number of select boards, often on island, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per individual, and it is just that. It is comment. It will be taken on board, and if there is a response that's deemed necessary by any member of the board or any member of management, the response will be given in writing at an appropriate time. So thank you for that. And with that, we'll go back to our meeting, and there's a motion. I would accept a motion or comments on the minutes of the meeting on September 16th.
I'll move to accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Is there any comment from any member of the board? And if not, it comes to a vote, and we are all here, so it does not need to be roll call. Anyone? No, Malcolm, aye.
Jeffrey, aye.
Yep, Randy, aye.
Yeah.
Jones, aye.
Thank you very much. Port Council report. Waiting for the dulcet tones of Mr. Lowell.
Thank you guys very much. That was a little confusing getting on. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay, Jim? Okay. So thank you. So our meeting on the 14th, Mr. Davis asked for a moment of silence for former board member Bob Marshall's passing. Mr. Lawrence provided a status update for the conversion of the Monomoy and recent milestones, including vessel returning to the water, installation of the anchor, windlass, installation of the bridge, console, coatings, freight deck, etc., installation of passenger seating, and hopefully sea trials are pending the review of the Marine Safety Center and the stability tests. Mr. Lawrence then provided an update on the MV and dry dock at Tham Shipyard. Highlights of the project included propeller refurbishment, steel repairs to the freight deck, galley deck, coatings, bow thruster maintenance, piping renewals, and pump motor overhauls. Mr. Davis then presented an update on the Woods Hole project, recent milestones at the utility building, including installation of bathroom fixtures, installation of cabinetry, countertops, and the break room. Recent milestones at the terminal building included copper soffits, fascias, and installation of stone siding, and the beginning of the interior wall framing. And Mr. Rosen provided an update on the reservation system project, and Allison Fletcher presented proposed revisions of the 26 late summer schedules. Mr. Rosen presented a business summary for August, and then provided proposed draft operating budget and the proposed draft rate adjustments. And then Mr. Davis commended the crew of the MV Island Home for the rescue efforts of the recent issue with that person that was overboard that we all know about now. And other topics, we talked about the blades on the Barnstable, which you'll hear on your meeting today, which is a interesting conversation about what that happened there. And that's it. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Whoops,
Mr. Lowell?
sorry about that. What was that now, Jim? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I wanted to know if anyone had any questions
Oh,
of you.
sorry.
Hearing no questions. Let's move then on into the general manager's report. Mr. Davis.
Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I just want to mention the staff that's in the room, in addition to the board. Sean Driscoll's running the Zoom, Mark Rosum, Courtney Oliveira, Mark Emerson, Terrence Keneally, Janice Kennefic, Allison Fletcher, Stephen Coleman. We have Port Council members, John Cahill and Joe Solito. Sorry, Sheila Cochran in the back. And also Tom Innes is here. The first item I have is an update on the MV Monomoy, and Mark will be taking that.
Good morning, everyone. I'm subbing today for Zach Lawrence. Zach and the engineering crew, we had a repairs to the number 3 bucket on the INO. We took the vessel out of service yesterday and overnighted, did the repairs at Fairhaven Ship Repair and returned to service for 08:15 scheduled departure. So kudos to the engineering staff.
Yeah.
Okay, start off with the Monomoy conversion at Alabama Shipyard. I would just like to start off that we're at somewhat of a standstill at the moment with the government shutdown. We completed the stability test on the 23rd of September and waiting the approved results. There is a skeleton staff in Washington. They're working with us. We hope to get a permit to proceed. We'll have more information following that. But right now she's quayside at Alabama Shipyard, a picture of the bow quarter. Next slide, please. This painting coatings are complete. Next slide. The bridge, we get some covering down there, ready to go, just protective of the radar screens and boxes. Next. And the freight deck is, this picture is uncoated, but all the coatings are now installed. Next slide. The passenger spaces are complete, just with coverings. So where we are with the INO, the budget, total budget for the project, 80.9 million, payments made to date, 83.7 million, outstanding commitments, 1.7 million, and the current estimate is 83.7 million. So as soon as we've done the incline test, as I mentioned before, but we're waiting again. The local OCMI in Mobile they have a skeleton staff, but they are working to complete various technical projects on there. So we hope to get that boat out of there in the near future.
So one minor correction. It's payments today, they're 83.7 million. Outstanding is 1.7. It's 85.9 million is the project
For the 3.
for the 3,
Yeah.
including acquisition.
Right. I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
Mark, now that we're talking about the Monomoy, and that's the third of the boats that we have for this $83 million, what have we learned about the speed over the ground of these vessels in terms of making their schedules?
Well, the speed over the ground is just as advertised. However, the first season, like any new vessel coming into service, there's a learning curve on it. I think probably, we started with some draft concerns that we were able to get the stability corrected. We do not have any draft concerns anymore. That has been solved. The speed we've had to do corrections with bringing the OEM of the manufacturer, and we've got that adjusted. We're at 12.3, 12.5, right in that area. It's right as projected. Now, in the third boat, what we've done is a skeg extension, which we expect even to increase the speed, and we're going to evaluate that at the sea trials to look at it, see if we're going to do that to the other vessels. And we've also gone out to, we'd like to get a little bit more speed in our, I'll say in our pocket, so on weather days, we can, pick up speed. It's been a learning curve in regards to the loading. It's a much wider deck, freight deck, And we monitor that, and we're doing, we have our own corrective actions in and how to load this thing better. And I think, as you probably see with the Aquina operating on the Nantucket run, it's been very quiet of late, just as we like it. So, you know, process improvements are important. That's what we're basing it on. I think that, that now that the third vessel, first year in any vessel coming in, I don't care if it's new, used, or whatever, is a learning curve, and our crews are adaptive, and we're getting there. We're more to come.
Okay, again, the speed was a concern in the beginning, and you're comfortable with the speed and making our schedule.
Yes, I am. I certainly will be looking at the Monomoy. We've got a lot of support from Hornback Offshore, which correctives they've done on their other vessels, identical in their fleet. So we'll be coming to the board in the future, perhaps to do skeg extensions, or perhaps we're looking at, right now we have, Bob has been instrumental on this, doing a study with Elliott Bay Design on perhaps a bulbous bow to see what that does. So the hulls are, you know, the basis for the purchase of this, the hulls are new. These vessels are gently used, and you know, they're going to be with us for 25, 30 years going forward. So we want them to get the best product out there that we can.
Thank you. Anything further on that from anyone? Okay. Dry dock?
Okay, pulling up the Martha's Vineyard. So the Martha's Vineyard returned to Fairhaven upon undocking yesterday. So we're doing final repairs before placing her in service. Next slide. It's a picture of her ready prior to undocking with all the coatings completed. Next. Just a picture of the wheels. We did one of the draw one of the shafts, and it's a polished propeller. Next. Just a stern profile view prior to undocking. Next. Now, what we did a few years ago, if you remember, on the opposite side, we did this same piece of steel. We're very aggressive in our preventive maintenance and predictive maintenance, so that we're doing gaugings not only for that docking, but for the next. And this was a planned replacement of the steel in way of the freight deck. Next. This is a cutout of that steel area. Next. And this is, we also did a section up in the galley. So we're all over predictive maintenance and preventive maintenance, the pillars of our program. So I think we've done, you know, made great strides in the past couple years. Next. So the highlights of the docking: hull coatings, bow thruster maintenance, propeller shaft bearing replacements, piping renewals, steel renewals, pump and motor overhauls. So so we had a budget going in of 1.56 million. We had credits to date of 139,000, change orders 99,215, and grand total 1.503 million, and we're under budget for the project. Any questions? Okay.
Is it? Okay. All right, next I want to provide an update on the Woods Hole Terminal reconstruction. I'm pulling that up, so the aerial view of the site to begin with. So starting off, we have this is the utility building. They've been installing the ceiling panels and the lighting on the second floor. Next. They're working on the locker rooms, setting up the seating for that area. Next. The electricians are working on wiring, and in this case, it's the generator was brought on site. You'll see that in the coming slide here. So they're working on making those connections. Next. This is in preparation for the wiring for the generator. We were kind of at Eversource provided us that they were on site yesterday to make the power connections, and we, you know, for appreciates the neighbors understanding that the process that we had to go through. Next. So this is some of the flooring areas that we were on the first floor. All the concrete had an epoxy coating put on them. Next. They're working on getting the stair treads and the entranceways to be level. Next. Now we shifted over to the terminal building. You can see that they're in the process of painting all the steel posts and beams being painted. Next. They've already started doing the framing for the interior walls in the building. Next. So this is some of the geothermal well tests that are underway. They did have to re-drill 3 of the wells, and that's been taken care of, and so they're connecting that system. Next. This is from the exterior. So the contractor blocked all the openings where windows would be going, so that way they have a somewhat weather-tight place to be working over the winter time. Next. And just showing some of this stone siding installation. They're nearing the end on that at this point. And next, the view from the water. And next. So the project payments to date, 22,440,000. We've had 1,116,000 change orders, or about 3.5% of the project to date. The project estimate at this point is 36,370,000. Colantonio still is between 65 and 70% done. They do expect that the utility building will be completed by the end of the year, and they'll be turning that over to us. And then we've sent out 294 emails, e-news emails related to the progress on this project since the beginning. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Board have any question? Sure.
A couple of questions. First, what is the status and plan of the site circulation survey?
We've engaged a firm to do that study. We provided them some background information. They were going to be reviewing that and contacting us as to when they needed to sit down and go over more any more information requests that they have.
And then you did mention about reaching out to the neighbors about the generator and the electrical switchover. I think if you could explain that to the public of what's going to be happening in that regard, and as well as that we're at the schedule of Eversource.
Yeah, and that it actually happened yesterday.
Oh, okay. Great.
And they started.
Well done, because I didn't get a single email about it. So, well, let's leave it be then.
We did hear from one of the neighbors, and Allison talked with the neighbor about the project, and again, our apologies for any disruptions that there was being caused, but as you said, we're to be making that switch over, we're at, kind of at the mercy of the Eversource schedule as well. So.
Okay. Anything else on this, members of the board? Robert, next.
Okay. So next is the reservation system replacement update, and Mark A. will be providing that.
Good morning again. So we had the ADIA team from Italy was on site from the 22nd of September to the 2nd of October. Very, very productive time period. Sometimes you just need a face-to-face to get, you just, especially with slight language changes, you need that face-to-face. So we've done to date a total of, in total, it's 21 workshops. We have completed 17 workshops to date. We have 4 remaining. And at that point, at the end of October, we'll be going into a solution design phase. We'll be looking at all the information changes that need to be made from our policy procedures into actually, the reservation system. We've had a number of town halls, and we have town halls scheduled for the November 10th will be for the mainland and our Palmer Ave at the admin offices. And we're going to be November 12th and 13th on the islands to meet with the public. And this is a great system. We're real happy with the progress. We're on track, on budget, and we look forward to continuing this project. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions from the board? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the staff wanted to present some and proposed revisions to the 2026 late summer operating schedules for both routes. So, Allison?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Don't want to get too close to that. I don't think I really need it. We're coming to you today because we found there were some discrepancies between the proposed 2026 operating schedule compared to this year's 2025. We realized we did have a reduction in service for the September to October schedule. So we're coming to you guys to fix this problem. The Martha's Vineyard route from September 11th to October 22nd, the MV Island Home, Nantucket, Monomoy, and Aquina are going to be scheduled to operate. The proposed revisions to the schedule period replaces the MV Governor with the Monomoy, and reinstatement of the 2 daily round trips and 1 optional round trip with a 255 sailing. Thus, the late summer schedule will be similar to the 2025 late summer operating schedule in terms of numbers of trips. And then on the Nantucket route, for the same period, the MV Eagle, Woods Hole, and Barnstable are scheduled to operate. The Nantucket route would see 1 change to the quantity of availability of trips during the schedule revision. The MV Barnstable will operate 3 round trips Monday through Friday, which reflects the same number of scheduled trips of this year. We're just presenting this modifications for discussion purposes only.
So if I may add, so since it is a change in the number of trips, we are advertising those changes for public comment. And we'll be coming back at a future board meeting for approval.
Mr. Jeffers. You're on.
Yeah. Could this be subject again to a new 15A hearing?
Yes, with
But-
respect, yes, with respect to the changes that proposing, yes.
And have we done the postings yet or not?
We put I think Sean's.
Yeah, we placed the ads today, actually. So the clock starts today and it's posted on the website. So the deadline for comment is late November. The 23rd, so the 22nd, I think 23rd, somewhere in there. So it's a 30-day comment period. And then if we get a petition, we'll evaluate it at that point.
So the soonest this will come before the board will be December meeting?
Yeah.
Down the end? Where? Thank you.
Thank you. How was this discovered?
We were starting to go back and just looking at what we were doing with the vessels that we had in the system, and it was just a small oversight on our part. We were thinking we could scale down service, but then we realized that once this is a current schedule we're just finished. Once we realized that how much service we had and what we were proposing, it wasn't going to work.
And it also is just a comparison of what the schedule was versus what the accounting team was working on for the budget. And it was discovered that the budget had included those trips, but the actual schedule did not. So you want to just clear that up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay. Very much, Allison. License amendment?
All right, the first item actually is kind of withdrawn. We put it on here initially because C Street had reached out about the ability to be providing service over for Nantucket Stroll. And initially, when I was looking at the approval, I didn't go far enough. There was a third version of it in which they had put in for the service So we don't have to have that approved. It's already been approved. I should point out, though, that what was approved back in December of 2024 included Thanksgiving service, in which C Streak has notified us that they do not intend to operate that service. They do intend on operating for the Nantucket Stroll. They do not intend to operate for Christmas in Eggatown. They do not intend to operate the week of Christmas or the week of New Year's, which they were licensed to do, but they've notified us that they don't intend to.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Is there no requirement that they provide service during this time?
I think that would be something that the board would want to be considering going forward is, when they, as you recall, they originally had wanted to run service 12 months of the year, and then within a short period of time after that, they decided that they weren't going to be doing it. It's understandable if it's, because of, some operational issues with vessels availabilities and things like that, but I think when the board considers these, it's considered it in a whole, and with the expectation that if they're proposing this as a public service and then deciding not to be providing that, I would think that the board and the board council would, you would want to take that in consideration going forward.
Is there anything in our current agreement with them that permits them to unilaterally cease service during these particular periods of time?
There's nothing stated in that way, but there's also nothing in there requiring them to run the service. And that goes back to the licensing policy that we've had since 1996. So we don't have any requirement. So essentially, I think one of the things from an operator standpoint, I think the reason why there's flexibility in that regard is because we're dealing with, we'd have to get into, operating cancellations for example, like for weather and that kind of thing. But it's definitely something we can look at, because this kind of, Bob and I were talking about this when we went through this, and I went back and I looked at the vote from last year, and we pieced it together, and then it led us to have this discussion about maybe we should be looking at the policy and making that recommendation. Again, we haven't gotten to that point yet. We still need to go back and look at the policy and see what recommendations we might have to maybe change it, because to Bob's point and your point, Mark, I think is, if we're going to advertise service and then to kind of pull it out here and, a month to go to Thanksgiving, I guess, that's not really what we're trying to do here for the public. So to answer your question, the answer is no, it doesn't, but it also doesn't say the opposite either. So
That's troubling.
Yeah.
To me, that, that they
yeah, I
can,
don't think it's never become an issue. It's been it was never really an issue. We don't have this issue with, Highline or the other licensees. So it's something we'll have to look at.
I share Moira's concern, and the comment I think is really valid. Steamship Authority licenses people to provide a service, and we welcome their provision of the service, and we welcome their participation in transporting people and goods and vehicles on and off the island. But for them to, I don't want to say arbitrarily, but for them to cherry pick the service that they provide after having committed to ourselves and the traveling public to provide that service, I think that's problematic. And I think it's something we ought to address. Thank you.
I would just, I guess, third that one second. At this point, I mean, the first thing that we're supposed to look at in licensing agreements is whether the proposed service is for the public convenience and necessity. And so if this is unilaterally being canceled, especially in a short amount of time, it kind of throws away our factors when we decide this licensing. And as we go and look at this, I'd also like to see what is its impact on our budget in terms of the loss of licensing fee for those runs, and whatever wharfage, if they're paying us wharfage. And then its impact on the port towns in terms of embarkation fee loss. Because those port towns may also be counting on that for the services they're providing.
Anything further on that topic? If not, Mr. Davis.
Yeah, all right, so I think we'll be, I'll work with C Street to notify them that, you know, the changing of the schedule, you know, is something that, hearing from the board that it's, you know, it's troublesome, that, you know, these services were originally approved, and that was the basis on how the license was approved, and there's an expectation that they should be able to run these services.
From, New Bedford, I'd like to be included in that discussion.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, next, we have a license request from Helen H. Offshore Fishing Corp. And Terry, you want me to do it or you want to do it? Oh, well.
It's up to you. You're the boss.
So, you got it? Go ahead.
All right, so recently we received a request, or an inquiry actually, from folks here in Oak Bluffs to go over to travel to Nantucket for high school sporting events this coming Saturday. And unfortunately, we couldn't accommodate the request. So I'm presuming parents and friends of these high school students are want to head over to the island or to Nantucket to watch their kids play in sports. So we weren't able to accommodate that request. We don't have the crews. It's not something that we can put together relatively quickly. So the matter was, my understanding, was referred to our licensees, Highline and C Street, for example, and they couldn't accommodate the request. So the folks here from Vineyard persevered and then reached out to the Helen H. Offshore Fishing Corporation, which is a head boat or a charter company in Hyannis, and they have several vessels that can accommodate the number of folks that they want to bring over. So we then on this, it was just this beginning of Monday or Tuesday of this week, started to put it together, did some research on the company, got their insurance information, and interacted with their principals on, what their plan is. And again, their plan is essentially just to take these folks from Oak Bluffs over to the Nantucket boat basin and then back. They're going to start early in the morning, go over and come back around dinner time. I think it was like 7:30 or so. I have it in the proposal here that I wrote up for the board. So in any event, it's just a one-day license. Again, to Peter's point, I know where he's pulling that, public convenience and necessity, that's right out of the policy. Again, I believe the students are gonna be coming over from the Vineyard to Woods Hole, then getting out to Hyannis, and then going over on, I don't know if it's the Iron or the big boat, but they're going over to Nantucket, and the kids are gonna be coming back that way. But, the parents just want to do direct route. The person, the company that they've contacted is willing and able to do it. They're a good outfit, and it seems they got the Coast Guard approval, they gave us their COIs, and their boat can accommodate it. I have drafted up a one-day license agreement that mirrors the same requirements we have from our other licensees. And again, it's not what I think is a nominal $2 person license fee to execute this. And quite frankly, after vetting it and going through it, I don't think there's much of a concern other than hopefully they have good weather Saturday. So that's basically what it is. And so with that, we're looking for a vote from the board to approve this one-day license for the Helen H. Offshore Fishing Corporation for this coming Saturday in exchange for a $2 per person license fee.
Okay, thank you, Terrence. Bob?
And also to authorize the general manager to enter into the license agreement.
Okay, before we discuss this any further, I think there's a representative from this group here. Do you wish to address the board?
I got it covered? I think you had it covered. Are you Tyler? Greg. Oh, hi, Greg. Thanks for coming, Greg.
You're not gonna speak.
Good to meet you.
Decision.
Okay, the Steamship Authority has, on both islands, been very supportive of sporting events and the travel of people back and forth. I would entertain a motion to approve this one-day license. Sure.
I'm so moved. I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, comes to a vote to authorize the general manager to permit the Helen H to do this one-day excursion. All in favor, please? Aye.
Thank you.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Okey-doke.
No?
No,
Everyone's here.
we're all here.
All right.
Okay,
All right, that takes care of me for the moment.
all right. That must mean it's time for Mark Rosen.
Good morning, everyone. First, we'll start with the business summary for the month of August. And as a reminder, all the statistics on the traffic are one way. Okay, so passengers for both routes combined for the month of August were up just under 24,000 passengers, or 5.8%, with the Vineyard route being up 4.8% and the Nantucket route being up 10.6%. Year-to-date, we're up just under 45,000 passengers, or 2.2%, with the Vineyard route up 1.8% and the Nantucket route up 4.4%.
Mark, can I interrupt for a sec? One of the things that this graph that I've now been looking at for 5 3/4 years points out to me is just how important passengers are to the profitability of the Steamship Authority. Essentially, there is no incremental cost to passengers. We run the boats for trucks and for cars. Adding passengers has very little incremental cost. And I think there's been discussion about the advertising budget that the steamship has. And Mark, I know, is going to get into that because we've discussed it a lot. But again, passengers are the gravy that makes the Steamship Authority profitable. And you can, as you'll see later, it's important to remember that because we compete on the islands as a destination for weekend or day travel with places like Providence, with places like Block Island, with places like the Cape. So it's important that we keep the visitors coming here, not only from the point of view of the Steamship Authority, but for the businesses that operate on the Cape and the island. Thank you.
Very well said, and Courtney said that you can do the slide when it comes up, because I don't think we can top that.
There's been so much discussion about this that I wasn't able to restrain myself.
And as everyone recalls, back in COVID, our vehicles were maintaining themselves, but where we're really taking the revenue hit was with the passengers. And then we had different scenarios for the following year. What happens if we only have 50% passengers, 70 or 90%? And that's where we came in at about 90%. So that's a very good point. Vehicles carried for the month of August. On the Vineyard route, we're down just under 1,000 vehicles, or 1.6%. And on the Nantucket route, we're up 1,500 passengers, or 15.9%. Excuse me, passenger vehicles. Month to date, we're up 0.9%, or 584 vehicles. In year to date, we're up 0.6%, or just under 2,300 passenger vehicles. And the reason why the Nantucket route is up this much is that you have more capacity available. Last year, you had the Sankey and the Gayhead running compared to the Barnstable and the Woods Hole. And with the addition of the new boat, it gives more flexibility, taking more freight, which creates the other boats to be more efficient with the passenger vehicle. So there's a twofold benefit of these new vessels. Freight vehicles for the month of August were down total 377 vehicles, so 3.9% for both routes combined. Both routes were down in the month of August. Year to date, we're down 0.4% at 254 vehicles, with the Nantucket route being up and the Vineyard route being slightly down. Cars parked for the month of August, mirroring passengers, were up 13.2% of 3,400 cars for the month. Both routes were up. Year-to-date, we're up 1.8% or just over 2,100 cars parked. The trip summary for the month of August, for both routes combined, in the month of August, we had 6 trips canceled for mechanical, 24 for weather, 62 on the schedule, and that was the pre-approved adjustment on the IANO, one round trip for 31 days in the month. Year-to-date, for the Oak Bluffs trip diversions, we have 192 trip diversions compared to 60 the year before. A big driver of that in August was the hurricane that sat there and spun for a few days that caused a significant amount of trip diversions in the month of August. But year-to-date, our mechanical cancellations are down 49% compared to the year before, and the scheduling crewing are down 63% compared to the year before, which Courtney will get into, and myself in the budget. Financial snapshot, total revenue was up almost 419,000 compared to budget, or 23.6 million. Total expenses were at 12 million, or down 839,000. Year-to-date, we have a net operating income of just under $11.6 million, which is above budget for the month by 1.3 million. Year-to-date, we have a net income of 14.3 million, which is above budget by 355,000. On the operating revenue side, we're up 290,000. The only item that was down compared to budget was the parking. Significant compared to the budget was the parking revenue of 4.5%. Everything else was pretty close to budget or slightly down. So for the year-to-date on the operating revenue, total operating income, we're down 2.9 million at 2.6%. And the big drivers we can see in the top right corner is the automobile revenue down $1.5 million or 4.2%. And that's being driven by the standard fares, particularly on the Vineyard route. Operating expenses for the month were down 831,000. A lot of this is some timing issues. Fuel was down year-to-date 1.1 million or 14.1%. We budgeted $3.17 for year-to-date, and we're at $2.50. Bringing that up because we'll be talking about this in relations to the R99 in the budget later on. So for the passengers carried in the month of September, we're relatively flat or up 100 passengers for both routes combined. And year-to-date, we're up 1.9% and just under 45,000 passengers. For the total vehicles, we're down for both routes combined, 636 vehicles or 1%. Year-to-date, we're up almost 1,400 vehicles or 0.3%, with the Vineyard route being down and the Nantucket route being up. Just saw a preliminary review of the first 2 weeks of October, excuse me. That Columbus Day traffic did have an impact on us, where for that 1 week, we were down about 11,000 passengers and about 1,700 cars with that storm coming in. Just to put in perspective how much one weather event can have an impact. So in the month of October, with smaller traffic numbers, it's going to play a factor on the income statement in October. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has regarding the business summary for the month of August.
Anybody? Lara?
I just have a question, Mark. On the attachment entitled Financial Snapshot
Yep.
and operating revenue and operating expenses, is it possible to add an additional column to show 2024? I understand that
Easy, very easy.
that you're doing everything in terms of budget, and that's very much, very important and very much
Yep.
appreciated. But I'd also like to see what it looked like compared to the year before.
Not a problem. So in the monthly financials I send out that has that, then I'll incorporate that. It's just an easy column to add it.
I hope I didn't add much more work to you, but
Once we set it up, we'll power automate it. It'll be good.
super, thank you.
Okay, so if I can change gears here and go to the proposed operating budget for 2026. On a high level, things that have occurred since the last board meeting. We've had 3 open houses, one on Nantucket, one on Martha's Vineyard, and one in Woods Hole. We've had 1 attendee at the Nantucket meeting, 2 at the Woods Hole, the Falmouth meeting, and approximately 25 in person at the Vineyard meeting. We'd like to thank all those people attend and all the people from staff and the members and the Port Council members who attended and taking time out of their day. We really appreciate the input that we received from these open houses. And we appreciate all the time that the members, the Port Council board members spent with us going through the budget and going over these items. It really helps us looking at different perspectives. And I'd also like to thank the staff, not only the accounting staff who put lots of nights and weekends into getting this done, but the support departments like engineering, maintenance, making sure we get good data to form this. That being said, the budget's changed about $150,000 since last month. We adjusted for the 2 dry docks that were awarded at the last board meeting for the Island Home and the Iano, and also the grant revenue that coincides with that. We've executed some more fuel hedges. We adjusted that a little bit. And then some payroll accruals and a couple payroll adjustments at the Woods Hole Terminal and the Reservation Bureau as far as quantity of people go. But net, it comes out to about $150,000 on the a decrease in the net income. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney to go over the operating expenses.
Morning. Good morning. The 2026 operating budget assumptions, the baseline for 2026 revenues comes from actual traffic statistics for the 12-month period of August 2024 through July 2025. Vessel dry docking and terminal maintenance expenses are projected and estimated up to 18 months into the future. The operating budget is based on the 2026 approved operating schedules. This, along with manning requirements, drives the vessel payroll costs. The MV Monomoy is scheduled to operate in 2026, and costs associated with that vessel have been estimated based on information from the MV Barnstable and MV Aquina. This budget also includes costs for the new reservation system that will launch in the 4th quarter of 2026. Based on the assumptions discussed and input from management, we arrive at the following: operating revenues of $152.7 million, operating expenses of $162 million, other income of almost $16.3 million, more than $9 million of which is derived from grant funding. We also have other expenses of $4.3 million to bring us to a net income from operations of just under $2.6 million. Significant operating expense changes between the 2026 budget and the 2025 budget are fuel costs decreasing by $295,000 or 2.5%. In 2026, we are estimating an average of $2.84 per gallon versus $3.15 per gallon that was in the 2025 budget. Payroll taxes is an increase of $186,000. Pension expense and health and welfare for employees is up a combined $660,000 in 2026. The largest increases are maintenance expenses, terminals increasing by $1.9 million and vessel maintenance increasing $2.8 million. We have more details about the maintenance expenses on the following slides. We have depreciation expense up $2.2 million and payroll expense increasing $2.7 million. The payroll increase is the result of all union contracts being settled. This investment in part has already resulted in a 58% decrease in trip cancellations due to crewing in 2025. Here are the details of the 2 categories with significant operating expense increases. The vessel maintenance graph on the left shows the increased preventative maintenance investments we are making. Of the $20 million, 32% is going to the dry docking of 5 vessels next year, and 29% is vessel maintenance done during scheduled repair periods. On the land side, $7.6 million is budgeted for maintenance. 54% of that budget is for repairs to dolphins and docks. This includes preventative maintenance in addition to scheduled repairs of pier decking in Vineyard Haven and Oak Bluffs and a transfer bridge repair in Fairhaven. Additional details about the maintenance budget is on the next slide. As I mentioned, projected maintenance expenses in 2026 include the dry docking of 5 vessels for a total cost of just over $6.6 million. The Nantucket, Eagle, Barnstable, Island Home, and Iano are all scheduled to be dry docked next year. By scheduling half the vessels one year and half the next, we are able to keep consistency in our operations and planning process. Additionally, a portion of the dry docking costs for these vessels will be covered by grant funds. Landside, we have just under 5 million budgeted for terminals, dolphin, and dock repairs. Projects include the transfer bridge and pier decking repairs I spoke of, and also repairs to the underdeck sprinkler system in Oak Bluffs. Training and crewing expenses. Total budgeted for 2026 is 1.6 million. This includes new pilot and captain training to ensure manning of all scheduled trips, additional ABs assigned in order to retain vessel employees and as a feeder system for potential new licensed deck officers, vessel familiarization training, so all crew members have the ability to work on any vessel, and continued STCW training for all vessel employees. Cybersecurity and additional IT training continues, as well as our biannual training and development expo for all employees. The graph on the left shows the advertising budget for the 5-year period of 2022 through 2026, while the graph on the right shows the distribution of the 2026 budget by category. As part of the strategic plan, next year's budget amount includes $60,000 that is dedicated to community events. That category accounts for 5% of the total budget. Additionally, 41% or $529,000 is going to digital and online advertising, and 20% or $263,000 to radio advertisement. The advertising budget is aimed at increasing passenger ridership. This graph illustrates projected passenger revenues by month, and as you can see, approximately 70% of our passenger revenue is in June through September. We focus the advertising on day trippers and passenger-only travel. As Mr. Malkin mentioned, additional passengers do not change the fixed costs of operating a trip. It does, however, incrementally increase parking revenue while also increasing embarkation fees for the port communities. We may reach vehicle capacity on trips, but we don't often reach passenger capacity. This is what the advertising budget is targeting. Lastly, for the expenses is the distribution of payroll costs. As you can see, almost 44% of the total payroll budget, or $25.4 million, is for vessel employees. Next, Mark is going to present the revenue side of the budget.
Thank you. As Courtney previously mentioned, we're looking at the 12-month time period for our traffic statistics, which is from August 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2025. We take the actual traffic statistics, apply it to what the current rate structure is in the right now, and then we come up with a forecast of what the revenue is projected to be. So we can see the passenger revenues are expected to increase by 3.6%, freight by 1.6%, rent revenue down by 41.6%. That's barge revenue specifically on the Nantucket run. In the decreases, there was a lot of jobs in the previous year that, as far as some housing projects that haven't come through this year. One thing that we learned in the budget process to get more involved and reach out to people, what type of projects are going on in the island to get a better forecast on the barge revenue numbers in the future. Just because we observed it this year doesn't mean it's going to happen next year. So that's a process improvement we're going to make in the budget process. And then automobile revenue. And as we mentioned for last 2 years about the standard fare autos being down, and that's driving that revenue of 1.7 million being down, or 3.5%. So grant revenue, as Courtney mentioned, we're seeing an increase of almost $4 million in grant revenue. This is part of our strategic plan, and the strategic plan that we've been developing over the last years and implementing, you don't see the results right away. So what we're seeing now is getting our new grants administrator actively involved in the budget, working with departments like with Stephen Coleman, Mark Munson, the engineering, better forecasting out which projects are, what grant funds are available or we can get, and then we can get these into the budget and start using these to offset our costs. Our grant revenue is, for these projects, it's an 80-20 match. We're using the ferry boat discretionary funds that we have, and also the 5307 funds that everyone's familiar with the MOU with the Cape Cod RTA. So we're starting to see some, the strategic plan and all these improvements that we're starting to see the benefits of them now. So here we can see where the net income and net losses on the proposed budget without any rate adjustments. So we lose money for 7 months of the year, and we have a net income for 5 months of the year. So the blue line is the aggregate net income or loss, and the columns in green or red are the monthly net income or net loss. So we have an $18.3 million loss through the first 4 months of the year. Then we climb out of that to get to a net income of 12.1, and then we finish the year at approximately $2.6 million. On this slide here, with the adoption of a strategic plan, as I mentioned before, we're seeing the results. With the continued investments in the training costs, we've settled the union contracts, we've increased preventative vessel maintenance investments where we see the mechanicals down by 49%, the decrease in crewing and trip cancellations by 63%. Those are things that were brought up at last year's budget meeting. They're really important, and we can see the KPIs in these dramatically improving. So we don't look at these as expenses. We're looking at these investments where we're seeing returns on this money being spent. We're also in the budgets including money for the new reservation system, which we anticipate going live in the fourth quarter 2026. The number one goal of the system is to have the system itself match what's happening in real world on the ground. So we have, if there's 50 spaces on the boat, we have 50 spaces being booked. So to eliminate the complaints where people say, I can't get a reservation for what I'm looking for. And we're also looking to improve the efficiency and increase the customer experience for our people. So with that, Courtney and I would be happy to answer any questions you have about the operating budget. Mr. Jeffries. You're on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark and Courtney, for that detailed explanation. Couple of questions. First is, what is our risk in terms of federal grants being stalled or canceled, and what type of deficit would that create with the proposed budget?
Right now, everything can change day to day, but as of last week, I just received federal funding from a grant that was open and the money came in. I just got notified yesterday of grants that we submitted in for September, that the funds are coming in the end of this month, or November 2nd, I forgot the date, so we're still seeing it come in. These are formula funds and, based on numbers where it's not as discretionary as other grants. And that most of these projects are already on the tip and the STIP. So anything can happen, but right now we haven't seen any change or anything taken away from what we've had, and we're still seeing the funds coming through.
Presuming we don't receive those funds.
So we would lose that 9.8 million, which you mentioned in grants. So we would basically break even for the year, roughly. And that would affect the cash transfers going to at the end of the day, to the replacement fund, which would then impact our capital projects. Then we'd have to decide, do we want to issue bonds to do these projects or delay these projects?
And then in terms of the proposed budget, what would there be the possibility to cut? I mean, obviously with payroll, we have union obligations, contract obligations that this board agreed to, and pension obligations. I guess if cuts had to be made, where could cuts be made? And then in a cascading, where could cuts be made that do not impact service, and where would cuts be made to impact service?
Okay, so if we were to cut, as far as take the service aspect first, one of the things we just voted on was the L&H for the school groups. Like, for instance, we're running the 5th trip on the IANA right now. The reason why we're running that on the IANA right now was for the school groups and the other people, the timing to get that over, because part of our core mission is the lifeline of the islands, to make sure we're providing these services to the islands. It's not a profitable trip, but it's an important trip for the impacts it has on the community. If you remember the graph with the net income by month, we lose money for 7 months of the year. Those would be the first trips we'd cut. But who's going to feel the burden of that? That's going to be the island residents. So if we cut from 7 trips a day to 4 trips a day with a freight boat, we could save $500,000 roughly January through March. But we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot, because we worked very hard to build up our vessel roster. And our employees want to work year round. And just like the challenges of every seasonal business on the islands and in the Cape, we need to keep as many employees as we can working, or else we may lose them or have trouble attracting them. So I think it would be taking a step backward. Plus, it's going to hurt the island residents. So those are things that we looked at. People have asked about, does Oak Bluffs need to be open and closed as much? It's a vital economic engine, keeping that port open. Even if we have trips divert, the benefit that it does for the businesses in the community and the embarkation fees are very important. Yeah, could we save $115,000 in the month of October? But what is the bigger impact? So we're part of the economic environment here. and we're integral. We want to work with our partners, and that's why we're not recommending those types of cuts. If we're looking at personnel cuts, then we're going to see, right now, have a huge project going on with the reservation system, that we have people putting significant extra hours dual dutying. And if we start cutting in, then other people are going to have to start grabbing that workload. And then some of these other capital projects are going to be in jeopardy of launching in time. So we could do that, but there's a cost associated with it. That's why we run pretty lean as far as staffing goes, and that's why we're not recommending them. And then the operational cuts, I think, will really, really hurt the islands, and that's why we're not recommending them.
And then more of a detailed question. In terms of, I know there's been a lot of focus in the public about the advertising budget, and you did a good job explaining that this is to increase the passenger walk-ons because they're very profitable. There's not a lot of operating costs to us with those. And I don't know if it's more Sean's question. Could you explain what each audience is for? Like who are we trying to capture with our television, with our radio, with our billboards? I know I always bring up billboards because I think they're rather antiquated, but help me understand what's the audience we're supposed to be capturing in terms of the billboard versus the TV and radio. I know with the digital online, we can track our return on investment. How are we, who's our audience, and how are we trying to track our return on investment with those three categories?
Sure, I can start that and Mark can jump in and help. But all of our advertising is really focused, as you said, on passenger traffic and more specifically day trippers. So our radio and TV spend is very limited to the Cape and Islands market and the Boston market, both for TV and radio. We're not trying to get people in from Maine or the New York area as much as we did a couple of years ago. And it's really, as he said, there's a lot of competition for attention these days. So we're trying to aim at people who are already here, generally speaking, and get them to take a day trip to the islands or a quick weekend trip to the islands without bringing their vehicles. So, I mean, obviously the billboard is specifically for people, in the Boston area or traveling through the Boston area. The TV and radio is for the Cape. And then when we say TV, it's the traditional TV, but also the commercials you get over Comcast when you're streaming, and those, that all gets lumped into TV. And then the digital as well, we target geographically, but also people who are searching high-speed ferry to Nantucket. We want to make sure, sorry everyone, but that Steamship Authority is the top of that list and that we're getting good search results. So in terms of tracking the effectiveness of that, it's limited right now. I mean, anyone who tells you they can track the effectiveness of a billboard is, it's all sort of supposition. But I know that with the new reservation system, Mark and I have talked about that we'll be able to offer, specific codes for, maybe discount on a, passenger ticket or something along those lines that would help us track the effectiveness of that a lot better. But, the billboard specifically is in a very visible location we've had for a very long time. That billboard has always been advertising the same day round trip on the high-speed fast ferry for the entire time I've been here and before that. So it's always that incremental revenue that doesn't drive up costs of getting people on our boat who are here, who are thinking about coming here, and getting them over to the islands for a day or two.
If I,
Bob?
You're good. Good. Got it.
Okay, thank you. For those are not in the business that need advertising, the first thing they want to cut is advertising. You never know what 50 cents has brought the sale. But I can tell you one thing, if you want to know how important advertising is, cut the advertising, and you'll find out very quickly as to what it does. And I was in the boat business, as I told you, did national advertising, 1 and 2 page glossy color on things like yachting magazine, sport fishing magazine, and that's national. And I could tell when that publication hit the street, because you'd start getting the phone calls on the boat that you were advertising on that publication. I've done billboards on the Southeast Expressway, and I can tell you, I've never seen a more powerful ad than what was there on the expressway. And it was right outside the Boston Boat Show one year. And one guy came, he was visiting from the Bahamas, and he saw the thing and he bypassed the boat show and right straight to my marina because he wanted to buy a fleet of boats. And I can tell you that I hated the advertising budget specifically because you never know, again, what it's drawing. But I can guarantee you one thing, you cut your advertising budget and you're gonna cut your 3 million passengers that advertising budget has bought. And also, hiring and looking for crew and things like that, and advertising that in industrial magazines and wherever you're drawing, your employment from, that's all comes from advertising. So for myself, I would add to the advertising budget rather than take away from it. So,
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'd share with the board, I've had conversations with Mr. Rosem and Mr. Driscoll. And one of the things that I'd like us to be focusing on next year is a thorough review of our advertising and our PR spending. I think that we really need to look at the way people consume information. And I'd like to review to see if we're flexible enough and if we're adaptable enough to the change way people get their information, social media and new technologies, and make sure that next year we go forward with a robust and appropriate advertising to attract the kind of revenue dollars that make us profitable. So that's a conversation that's ongoing. Thank you. With that, Mr. Rosen.
We can either vote, so what I'm asking, so at the Port Council meeting, the Port Council voted to approve the proposed budget as proposed. And so I'm looking for a vote from the board to approve the budget.
I'll move to propose, to approve the budget as proposed, based upon the presumption that no one wants to cut service.
I'll second that.
Okay, I think the point is exactly right. One of the things that we saw during COVID was we did cut trips. That's how the authority saves money, is by cutting service. And there are knock-on effects when we do that. COVID, it was manageable because people were traveling less. But when people are traveling, cutting trips, it does have knock-on. And I'll tell you, from my own experience, having worked in turnaround situations with businesses, the easiest thing to do to cut costs is simply to cut the things that you do. And cutting service in our losing months of the winter would have a disastrous impact on the islands that we serve. So with that, this comes to a vote to accept the operating budget, and we can do this via voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Shall we wait for Moira to come back? All right.
Perhaps when she returns, you could ask her.
Okay. So we'll move forward and we'll come back to that then. Next.
Okay, so to get to the bottom line, that we're looking for approximately $10 million, which helps cover our debt service and funds our capital funds for future capital projects such as the website. We're going to need a rate adjustment, a proposed rate adjustments. So before we get into that, we want our recommendations. We want to talk about what's driving the KPIs and what's justifying the rate adjustments that we need. Looking at the increased maintenance expenses from 21 to 2026, we've gone from 19.5 million to 31 million. The key to our business is no secret. We got to keep the boats running. That's our core function. Maintain the boats, keep them running. Pretty simple solution. Here on the budgeted training expenses, we need qualified people to operate the vessels and on the shore side to support the vessels. We're investing in our employees to make sure that we provide the best customer service we can for our customers. We also have a new reservation system coming online. It's not going to do us any good if no one knows how to use the system.
Thank you. Moira, we came to a vote on accepting the proposed budget, and we voted, but we're waiting for you to hear from you.
Proposed budget, I vote yay.
Thank you. That makes it unanimous on that vote. Thank you very much, Moira.
Thank you for
Of course,
waiting for me.
of course.
So on the training expenses, we got to make sure we're qualified to run the vessels, qualified to operate the terminals, to operate the parking equipment, and we have a new place now with a new reservation system. It's not going to do us any good of spending $5+ million in the system if we don't know how to operate it. So we have to invest in our employees. Budgeted IT expense. We're investing in technology to improve the overall customer experience and improve the SSA's efficiency in operations. We can have data, but if the data is not timely and it's not in a usable format, it's not going to do us any good. We're going to make sure that we're a data-driven organization, making good decisions to optimize our efficiency. And then going back to the revenue side that we just talked about, the passengers and the vessels, if we're not cutting service, we need to find other ways of filling in those trips that aren't being used as much. The new system allows us to offer discounts or maybe move some of the traffic patterns around with new technology and new operational abilities that the system has that our old system couldn't do. So right now we're targeting roughly a $10 million bottom line. As we just mentioned, we're at 2.6 million before any rate adjustments. So we need about 7.5 million based on the operating expenses. 4.5 million would come from the Vineyard and roughly 3 million would come from the Nantucket route. And on this slide here, it shows the aggregate adjustments for both routes combined. Passenger fares would account for 1.8 million or 24% of the overall adjustments. Excursion fares, they have not been adjusted since 2021. That would account for almost $500,000 or 7%. Standard fare vehicles, 24% or 1.8 million. Freight vehicles, just under 2 million or 27%. Parking permits, and mainly it's on the daily fee parking, would account for about 1.3 million or 17%. And there's miscellaneous fees like bikes, motorcycles, and barges, which would make up the other 78,000. So on a nutshell, we're looking at a 5% adjustment across the board with some adjustments in the parking rates, specifically on the Nantucket run to get more to market rates, which we'll see in a future slide. So here's a breakdown on the Vineyard route. The standard fare vehicles will go up approximately 5%, and we have a slide showing what each month would be, but that would generate 1.2 million. The excursion fares are currently at $36.50 in the off-season and $53 in the summer one way, but keep in mind that also includes 2 adults and 2 children. So we'll be looking at a $1.75 adjustment and a $2.75 adjustment. Freight would be a 5.5% increase. Passengers, adult would go up 50 cents, a child and senior 25 cents, and all the other books would go up accordingly in proportion. Daily fee parking, we'd go to a 2-rate structure, $20 in the off-season, $25 in the summer season. That would generate 760,000. And then we'd have parking permits, the Woods Hole permits going up by 200 and the Palmer by 50. That would generate about 129,000. And the reason why the Woods Hole permit's going up more, basically the Woods Hole permit has a lot more cost to absorb, try to get them to pay for the service that's being provided there. Here's a breakdown of the standard fare vehicles, and without going into each category, you can see it's roughly a 5% adjustment for each category with rounding. On the Nantucket route, same premise here. We have the standard fare vehicles going up approximately 5%. That would generate just under $600,000. Again, their excursion fare is similar to the Vineyard, hasn't gone up since 2021. 5% increase of $450 in the off-season and $625 in the summer. Currently, they're at $91 in the off-season, $123 in the summer. Freight would be 5.5% increase, similar to the Vineyard. High-speed passengers would see a $2 for one-way, adult $3 in a same-day trip, $1 for a one-way child, and $2 for a same-day round trip. And all the other rates would go up accordingly with the coupon books, et cetera. The conventional ferry would go up $1 from $20 to $21. The child would go up from 10 to 10.50 with the seniors, and the other books would go up accordingly. And then the parking permits would go up $75 and $50. On this slide, we can see the standard fares, what the proposed adjustment is, and what the new proposed rate would be for each time period. And this is in everyone's packet. I won't spend too much time on the slide. Here are the highest parking rates, and you can see some rates, they haven't been adjusted in quite a while, are currently at $5, where it's significantly below market. So we're looking at adjusting the rates anywhere from $5 to $7 to get it more in line with market, where it would be anywhere from $10 to $25 per calendar day. And as we talked about before, and at many board meetings, and at the May meeting in New Bedford about when we did the cost of service, we can see the excursion fares. Last year, they covered 29.4% of the cost of service on the Vineyard route. It's dropped to 26.6% this year. In 2024, compared to a standard fare auto covers almost 133% of its service, and in 2023, and almost 126% in 2024. The same premise is pretty close on the Nantucket run, where the excursion fare this past year in 2024 covered 32% of their cost. Here we can see, looking at the green bar for the MV revenue and MV space, the excursion fares use 30% of the space, but they account for 10% of the revenue. Back in 2020, that was a 2-to-1 ratio. The Nantucket run, it's 15% of the space and 5.6% of the revenue. Again, in 2020, it's at 2%. The cost for that was not been rate adjustments and more people using it. This graph just shows the distribution between excursion fares and standard fares. And that's really important, because when the standard fares are paying 120, 130% of the cost, and you have less of them, it's going to impact the overall revenue. So pre-COVID, we were at a 62% versus 38% ratio. Now we're at 59 to 41%. So that does have an effect on the bottom line. And on this slide, on the Nantucket one, it's the same thing. So one thing I was asked at last month's board meeting on Nantucket, what the usage was for the excursion profiles. So in green is the Vineyard route, and in blue is the Nantucket route. So in 2019, there were just under 8,800 accounts using the excursion rate on the Vineyard route, and just under 4,100 on the Nantucket route. This past year, in 2024, it went to just under 9,500 profiles on the Vineyard route, and just under 4,400 on the Nantucket route. So it's on the Vineyard route, it's an increase of 8.1%. In Nantucket, it's 6.8%. But more concerning is from 23 to 24 on the Vineyard route, that grew 5% this last year. So we have more reservations using it, which we'll show on another slide. So digging deeper on this next slide is that what's amazing, statistically speaking, is that the average person doesn't use the excursion rate any different than they did in 2019. So the average use per account is 11.1 in 2019 compared to 10.9. So the traffic patterns are the same on the Vineyard, but it's just more people using it. And on the Vineyard, on the Nantucket route, it's exactly 3.7%. I mean, 3.7 times. So the patterns aren't changing. It's just the quantity of people doing it. So when you combine the amount of profiles using and the average, you can see on the Vineyard route from 2019 to current, we went from 97,000 transactions to 103. And on the Nantucket run from 14.9 to 15.9 thousand transactions. So with all that being said, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but we do understand how important the excursion rate is for people. There's no doubt about it. That's, it's the excursion rate when it was made for is for year-round island residents to go off the island, to see their kids play sports, to go visit their family, to take care of appointments with lawyers or doctors, whatever it may be. That's what it was for. It's not for secondary homeowners to come over and go to their house. It's not to subsidize businesses. That's what the excursion rate's for. So we know it's key to preserve this program. Let's make no mistake about it, but we understand that. So on this graph, what it shows here on the Vineyard route, on the third table, that 67% of the people use the reservation either once a month or less, which accounts for 35% of all the excursion travel that we have. 92% of the people who travel on the excursion rate use it twice a month or less. but that only accounts for 74% of the overall usage, which means 8% of the people using the excursion rate account for a quarter of all the rates. So we got to look at why do we have this disparity? So that's the thing we're looking at. So if one of the things we've been looking at, does it make sense where the Port Council mentioned a Lifeline and a Port Council? Lifeline and excursion rates are two different tiers, so we have 24 usage, which wouldn't affect 92% of the people on the Vineyard, and it would only affect 8% of the people who travel over 24 times, and just have the excursion rate with the new system go at that level. That alone, we can't do that in the old system. There's about 8,700 transactions, and the average difference is about $80. And then when it's a round trip, you're looking at about $1.4 million approximately. So that's something we could look at the new system, leveraging that to help keep the rates down in all the fares by just making that change once we have the technology in place to do it. So those are things we're going to talk about in the open houses and the budget meetings going forward. And that was something that you guys asked me to do last year, to look at the excursion fare program. The Nantucket side, it's similar patterns, but half the volume. So theirs would be 6 and 12 versus 12 and 24, because 2/3 of the people in Nantucket use it 3 times or less. 85% of the people use it 6 times or less, and 98% of the people use it once a month or less. The other thing that I was asked to look at was to implement a third tier. Mr. Lowell and Mr. Malkin, specifically Mr. Lowell, has been in my ear for a couple of years now, that we cut the excursion rate down in September, but yet when we cut the service down, we cut the rates down, but we also cut the service down. So how do we make that better? So we'd recommend on the bolded line there, the 3-tier, keeping the January through March, which mostly year-round residents are using that one, the same as what was proposed. Then take the blended average from April to May 31st, which would go up incrementally, but instead of from May 15th to 31st paying $55.75, they'd only pay $41. So you'd extend that rate longer into the summer. The summer rate from June to August would stay the same, and then September 1st to December 31st, have that $41 blended rate till the end. Where now, instead of waiting until September 15th to travel, now you can travel at that lower rate September 1st. That helps people go to school, visit the kids, whatever it may do in the fall. So we did that as our recommendation for a 3-tier. If we're going to go that rate, it's revenue neutral as far as what the numbers would come in. So we blended the rate and we smoothed out with the time frame, so island residents can travel at the lower rate for longer, but yeah, the summer rate still stays higher than everything else. And on the Nantucket rate on the next slide, it's the same principle. That's our recommended for the 3-tier system. Is smooth out that April 1st through May 31st and September 1st to the end of the year. Yes, Mr. Malcolm.
What is your recommendation? Is it the flat 5% 3-tier or the 3-tier?
The 3-tier flat and bold to extend the travel periods, revenue neutral. Yes, that's my recommend. That's our recommendation from the accounting department. And then this is just the distribution, as I mentioned earlier, of where the rate adjustments come from. As again, 27% would come from freight, 17% would come from parking, 24% from standard fare vehicles, 24% from passengers, and 7% from the excursion fares. And then with this fare adjustment, we can see here that we, instead of going from a 7 months loss, 5-month net income, we go to a 6 and 6 model where April, even though you can't see it, is green, trust me, and we end up at 10.1 million at the end. Budget follow-ups, as mentioned earlier in the budget, we looked at cutting the costs, but these costs are going to adversely affect year-on-island residents. I think the better model is how do we fill some of those spots in and look at the revenue side of gaining spaces through different methods in the system, different ways of allocating the vessels, make sure we're matching up our capacities with when people want to travel. We've made great strides in rebuilding our vessels rosters. I don't want to see us go backwards where we're having the same conversations we had in 2024. I don't think anyone wants that. And as mentioned before, we're similar to the rest of the people in the area, that we have a seasonal uptick and we have to maintain that level of service. But we want to keep qualified people year round because it's hard to get good replacements and there's a cost to replace someone. And then the other issue is that we talked about was the R99, the diesel, the synthetic diesel. And that came up at one of the open houses, actually 2 open houses. The board gave approval originally June through September for the pilot program. That's not incorporated in the budget because pilot program is stopped. I would recommend as a way to handle this is that we continue the pilot program in 2025. The island home comes back in service on March 29th roughly. And then we evaluate on a monthly basis. I think we can absorb, because roughly it's about a $600,000 in fuel cost. This year we saw during the budget, we're under our hedges in fuel. And as long as there's no knock on wood black swan events and there's no disparity between the pricing in New York and Providence, I think we can handle that. If we report on a monthly basis, if RD99 went to a huge number outside of the realm, like $5 a gallon versus $3, I think we'd have to have a real conversation of if that's something we want to do. Because at that point, it's a lot of money that we're talking about differential, but that would be my recommendation is to have the board approve, continue the pilot program next year, and then we monitor it and look at where we're staying financially and absorb it, because I don't want to ideally add any additional costs onto the budget.
Mr. Chair, if I could just inject, this RD99 is a great improvement. It reduces greenhouse gases by 50% right now. And I think it's this is going to be a wave of the future. So I would definitely affirm Mark's position on that. Thank you.
And when we do it, we don't want to go rack. We want to ideally have it based off of ULSD, because I can hedge off USLD and cap our exposure. But if it's rack, there's no mechanism to hedge off of just RD99. So basically like insurance to keep us within a price window corridor on our fuel.
If I may, one of the issues with RD99 as well is going to be availability. My understanding is California is sucking up a huge amount of RD99. And so it's going to be availability, and that, of course, will have an impact on price. Thank you.
So I'll take any questions you have regarding the rate adjustments. The Port Council did approve it at their meeting, so I'm looking for a vote for approval.
Mr. Jeffries.
It was for clarification, it's a 4-to-1 vote on the budget at the Port Council.
Thank you. If I can say a couple of words about the rate adjustment, and I appreciate the patience of the board letting me say this. I'm aware that no one likes to pay more, right? I mean, that's what we're facing, but more so, we've just approved a budget because we didn't want to cut any service. So we're left having to increase rates to meet that budget. And whose rates are we increasing? And as I thought about that, I thought it was important to go back to the Enabling Act and just exactly what this board is tasked to do. And, you know, in Section 1, it says the purpose of the steamship authorities to provide adequate transportation of persons and necessities of life for the islands of Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. But then looking further at Section 6, you know, who are we here to serve? And the statute clearly states that the exercise of the powers granted by this act will be in all respects for the benefit of the people of the Commonwealth, for the increase of their commerce and prosperity, and for the improvement of their health and living conditions. So our focus isn't just on the traveling public in the islands, but the entire people of the Commonwealth. And as I look at how we're going to fix and set the rates that we are unable to under the Act, under Section 4. I'm also have to keep in mind under Section 9 that if we do have a shortfall, it isn't just the island that pays for the shortfall, but 30% of any shortfall deficit will be paid by the town of Barnstable, the city of New Bedford, and the town of Falmouth. So in thinking that, I think that, like my counterpart on the Port Council, Rob Munir, we do need to address the excursion fares, and there needs to be an increase. I think, Mark, and we've discussed this, that if the excursion fare had just kept pace with the inflationary rate, we'd need to see a $7 increase this year on the excursion fare to even have it reflect what was paid in 2020.
Correct.
One, by those who paid excursion fare rates. I am open to the proposal that's just up before us. I know that my counterpart in Port Council thought we're moving a little too slowly on this. I do think with the reservation system and the idea from the Port Council of a lifeline rate and kind of capping the number of excursion fares is probably the way to go moving forward. And I can be a little bit more patient with addressing that. But in a larger sense too, I think that as we see our budget, we see what our capital costs are increasing exponentially, what the cost would be to convert a boat, let alone buy a new boat, and the cost of the terminals that we either need to renovate, replace, or repair. Our fare box only and bond structure, I don't think is going to be adequate enough moving forward in the future, but we're going to have to show that everything we do is to the benefit of the people of the Commonwealth. And as long as we're offsetting a very subsidized rate through the excursion fare, we're going to have an exceptionally hard sell to the Massachusetts legislature to give us any money towards our capital expenses if we don't at least have that cost of service variation get a little bit tighter than it is. So with all that being said, as we move forward on thinking about the rate adjustments, this is why I would be in favor of the proposal from the treasurer in terms of this year's rate adjustments, and pointing out that the blended rate looking for the excursion fare, at least on the island of Martha's Vineyard, is less than a 12-ounce cup of coffee at a local bakery here in Vineyard Haven, which is $2.50 for a 12-ounce cup of coffee, regular. Just putting it in perspective.
Thank you. Speaking of coffee, I'll make a couple comments. I think that this concept of a lifeline rate is something that when we get to our new reservation system is something that we really need to look at. I also think that it's important to recognize, and I've taken some heat on this, but the Steamship Authority as a lifeline is providing the transport of food, fuel, and medicine primarily to the islands. And that's kind of what Lifeline is about. But increasingly over time, as people travel more from the island of Martha's Vineyard to the mainland for things like medical, for things like car repair, for things like shopping, for things that are part of life, we have an issue, particularly with an aging population in Martha's Vineyard. And so I think with our new reservation system, one of the things that we need to look at is this lifeline concept and what exactly and how does that apply? And when I look at the accounts versus usage, which is a really interesting graph that Mark's put together, and I've been puzzling over this for a number of months. But I think that part of that high frequency usage may be people who are going for medical issues. And that's something that we need to look at going forward as we can cut in and segregate the usage of the Steamship Authority. I think the Steamship Authority has done a very good job to date. I think with the advances in technology, we will do a better job as well. But addressing its role, which again is primarily food, fuel, and medicine, and it's not so much personal holidays, but so much what you need to live your life successfully on these islands. So with that, that's the only editorial I make. But Mark?
And I should mention that it's preliminary, but we would exclude medical from that category, because medical is medical. You're traveling because you have to, not because you want to. That should not be included in the excursion rate. And there's one difference in the new system versus the old system, is the current system has joint accounts. So me and my wife are one account, and we're in that blended average of 11. The new system's a single account because it's associated with an email address with sub-users. So now me and my wife, for example, would have 2 different accounts. So we're going to get that average even further and seeing how many singles and joints are using it when we come up with a recommendation on that line.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Are there any other comments from the board about the proposed fare adjustments? There are none. Is there a motion?
Just complicated.
It is complicated. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the proposed rate adjustments.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been made and seconded. We're all here, so it comes to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'd like to thank the staff for the serious consideration and listening that was done at the sessions that were open to the public. I'd like to thank the public who attended and offered comments. And I look forward to moving ahead with this budget and with our new systems and doing an even better job for the islands and the people of the Commonwealth going forward. Mr. Jones. Yes.
So, I'd just like to make one comment and thank Mark and Courtney for what they did in putting this together. They traveled, you know, far from home and things like that to answer the public. We had personal meetings, you know, in Hyannis and I'm sure with the rest of the board members. I think you did an outstanding job and really came up with a reasonable solution. So that's all I have to say.
We thank you.
Thank you. All right. We had a vote. We got it approved.
All right, so next on the agenda is some procurement items. First is requesting the members to authorize the general manager to award contract number 10-2025, which is for a dry dock and overhaul services of the MV Nantucket, to the lowest eligible and responsible bidder, which is same shipyard and repair company of New London, Connecticut. Total contract price of $1,559,883. The motor vessel Nantucket is scheduled for shipyard February 25th through March 29th of 2026 for hull exam, rudder, propeller, shaft maintenance, bow thruster maintenance. The 2026 operating budget estimate for this, including the above items that I mentioned, was $1,231,450. The discrepancies in the amounts budgeted in the 2026 operating budget and the bid results was $328,000, the most significant of which was $86,000 for a gray water tank replacement and $145,000 for floor epoxy coatings. We did send it to 14 shipyards. Only one bid was received. Since we just talked about the budget, this is a great example of how, you know, when engineering is looking at these projected costs, they're looking, you know, 18 months out, and this one wasn't 18 months out, but it's still, you know, is exceeded. So that's why we need, you know, part of the reason that we do need that little cushion. And the grant, and it also, in this case too, 80% of this is going to be able to be, the difference is covered by some grant funds, so. So the recommendation is to authorize the general manager to award contract number 10-2025, dry dock and overhaul services for the MV Nantucket to the lowest eligible and responsible bidder, Thames Shipyard and Repair Company of New London, Connecticut, for a total contract price of $1,559,883.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion seconded.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion's made and seconded. It comes to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That's passed.
All right, next item, request a vote of the board to authorize the general manager to execute a purchase of labor and expenses required for the overhaul of the two main engines, the EMD engines on board the MV Eagle, per quotation 6269139 from Marine Systems, Inc. of Chesapeake, Virginia, for a total contract price of $239,072.54. The authority intends to purchase the labor and expenses required to overhaul the two main engines on the Eagle. Work is going to be conducted during the 2025 repair period, which starts later this month. And the vessel is due back on January 10th. So we're seeking authorization to execute the purchase of the labor and expenses required for the overhaul 2 main engines, the port and starboard engines on the motor vessel Eagle, model EMD 12-645-E6 to Marine Safe Systems, Inc., Chesapeake, Virginia, for a total contract price of $239,072.54.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
Just got a question.
Question?
You said that company's in Chesapeake,
Yes,
so we're gonna deliver the boat to the Chesapeake.
they'll be coming on site.
They'll be coming outside.
Yep.
And these are MTs,
EMD.
EMD, okay. I'll move that.
Okay, it's been moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comes to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. It's carried. Thank you, Bob.
And that takes care of procurement.
Okay, that takes us to General Manager Search Committee update. Okay, I'd like to let the board know and the public know that we have conducted, as you know, a very extensive search. We have been in the process of doing deep due diligence on the candidates who remain with us as viable candidates. We are preparing for early November to bring to the board candidates to be interviewed. We are looking for that to be in the first week of November, but between travel schedules and some final issues of diligence, we will not be able to do that sooner. I would like to have it done sooner. But I think in all fairness to our public as well as to the Steamship Authority, that we are as exhaustive as possible on preparing for this hire. So with that, unless you have anything else to add, I'd ask the board to think of the questions that they wish to address to these candidates. The questions will be put. We're looking probably for an hour and a half with each candidate in front of the board. And again, we're hoping to have that in very early November. Anything further, Terrence?
Yeah, just to clarify that point. So, each session would be an hour and a half with a break for lunch, be one day. Looking to try to get a venue in Falmouth to do that. We've got some feelers out to do that. And so we'll notice the meeting the first session, about an hour and a half, which gives each member about 15 minutes of questioning, and maybe someone wants to cede time to someone else who has got more probing questions than others, then that can happen as well. Obviously, we can go longer than an hour and a half if we have to. And then we'd have a break and then bring in, have an afternoon session with the other candidate. And again, we'll have it via Zoom and probably FCTV again, and carry on that way. And if anybody has any questions about that, we can just reach out to me or Jim or Janice, and we can.
Terry, you want to bring it, one step further, that we have the questions of the candidates and things, and then what?
Well, I think that would take care of it, and then I would assume that, depending on the appetite of the board, how they want to move forward after that, after getting the answers to their questions. I think the questions and the answers are going to be determinative of what the next steps are going to be. So
My question is, will we come back? We're in a public session, okay? Will we, the board,
just speak closer to the mic, Bob.
the board be negotiating and discussing the winning candidate?
Well, that's the thing. I think one of the things that we haven't discussed is, oops, that thing's still on. Okay. One of the things we haven't really discussed is, what time frame or what deliberations do the board wants to have following the interviews. And so my thought process was that would occur at a subsequent meeting or at another time, depending upon, because again, I think it's going to be a long day. But again, that's up to you as to how you want to go about executing that's the following part. My thought process was the interviews require a long day. You guys can then take the information, mull it over, and then make a deliberation, or however you want to do it. If you want to do it all in one day, that's fine too, but my thought process was, getting the interviews done and then taking the next step.
Yeah, well, that's fine. But at that point, at some time when if we mull it over and stuff, that's in a public session, that we set up another meeting, correct, of the board?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we set up another meeting with the board, and from there, we'll go, once we decide on a candidate, or before we decide on the candidate, we gotta go back to executive session to discuss a contract, correct?
The contract wouldn't be discussed until after you actually, so that essentially you will nominate somebody, appoint someone, and then that.
I'm just looking for a timeline, A, B, C, and D, so that everybody knows exactly where we're heading from here.
I'm just trying to get the interviews done at this point, Bob, but.
If I may, I think after the interviews of candidates are concluded that day, I think the board should have the opportunity to discuss where the board feels we are. And if the board is prepared to make a decision that day, then the sense of the board would, and if that is the sense of the board, then we would make a decision that day.
And that's fine.
On
yeah.
the other hand, if the board feels that a member needs more time and consideration of the candidates, then we'd have another session to do that.
Sure, and that's fine. So we haven't really got to that point, but
Correct.
yeah. Is that,
No, that's in my mind, but I want to make sure that everybody understands. that.
yeah, that's fine.
So,
Sure.
Please.
Prior to the interview day, could, we be provided with curriculum details
Yeah.
of the candidates? Did they fill out any sort of application?
We're going to be providing you more with a packet of the two candidates. You'll get that similar to what we do prior to any board meeting. We'll give you a packet.
What's
You'll have
gonna be in the packet?
the information that's been submitted by the headhunter, the stuff that the committee members reviewed for those two candidates. You'll have all that information.
And anything directly from the candidate
There is material in there directly from the candidates, correct?
and resumes,
Yes, 100%, yeah.
references?
I'm not sure if we have references in that packet, but we clearly have their former employers and recommendations from the committee.
We have a lot of information on each. We have CVs, we have names of references, we have the background that's been done by the search firm for us and the further follow-ups. All of that will be provided to board members when 48 hours before our meeting, when we go public with the names. We post the meeting.
Thank you.
I'd also like to emphasize that we'll be would only be dealing with the two recommended candidates, the candidates who we've interviewed prior to this, and we have passed over to the N2. Those will remain in executive session and confidential.
Correct.
As well as the candidates who withdrew from consideration after extensive interview process.
Right.
Okay. Anything further on that? Sir?
No.
Well, appropriately enough,
I
there's
turned it on 'cause I'm
there's the IT committee review.
A little bit easier. IT Executive Steering Committee update. We met this past Monday on an update from the team as to where we are in terms of the reservation system implementation. I'm happy to report everything's in the green. We are on time with all of our milestones. We've also, significant update, the project sponsor has changed as planned. We had the handshake between Mark Rosen, Mark Adamson, so we can still just use Mark as the project sponsor name. Mark Rosen, thank you so much for seeing us through the RFP process and the award of the contract. And now ownership takes place with the COO, who this is going to be a significant major tool. After the vessels, it's probably the next best significant tool that operations will use, and it'll touch every aspect of it. So Mark Adamson is now the project sponsor. Moving forward, Mark Rosen will stay involved, though, as a subject area expert. The kind of two main focuses of the IT Executive Steering Committee moving forward at our November meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for November 14th, we will be focusing on where we are in terms of developing and reviewing our business rules, standard operating procedures. This process has given the Steamship Authority both the opportunity and the challenge to review its business rules or develop them when they are in a vacuum. Kind of pointing out what are some of those business rules. What's our check-in policy? What time does it occur? When do we release spots that have previously been reserved so that we have better usage and utilization on our vessels? A big thing that we just talked about was moving to linear feet in terms of deck space, and as well as on some of our vessels, we have to determine height as well as linear feet so that we are using our vessels to its utmost utilization. So that'll be the kind of the focus of our November meeting. The other major kind of oversight that the IT Executive Steering Committee is focused on is the procurement plan moving forward for the reservation system. And we should have a draft procurement plan to be presented to the IT Executive Steering Committee in December. So that way we can make recommendations to the board so that we have the adequate resources to move forward with implementing this successfully. With that, I'll take any questions or defer them to Mark Adamson if I can't answer.
Anything, members of the board? No? All right, Mr. Davis.
I do just have one thing to add under old and new. As a reminder, Tuesday, November 11th is Veterans Day. And as per the policy that the board has adopted a couple of years ago, we'll be offering free transportation for both active and past service members on board as passengers on board our vessels. So,
Thank you.
and to honor their services.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, anything further? All right. At this point, we'll take public comment. Is there any public comment?
If there's anybody on the Zoom who wishes to have public comment, you can raise your hand. Is there anyone in the room before we do that? Did you?
Good morning, almost afternoon. My name is Cameron Nairn. I live in Oak Bluffs. Mark, when you did the budget presentation in Oak Bluffs this month, one of the things that it was my understanding that you mentioned having to do with the Islander rate was that there is some percentage of Islander rate users that are like astronomical, like above 100 uses. That doesn't seem to me to be something that needs to be built into the reservation system. That seems to be something that it's an enforcement policy that needs to be developed or enforced. If you could address that either today or in the future, that would be helpful. My second issue is, Bob, you mentioned the Veterans Day tickets. I utilized that last year. I got my veteran ticket, and then I was challenged by 3 people getting on the boat that was not a valid ticket. So I think there's an education aspect to your staff that's needed there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I do have one couple, sir, you can go ahead, sorry.
Couple of quick questions. I noticed in the budget, one of the big items is a decrease in rent revenue. Oh, sure, Jonathan Chattonover living in Edgartown. I was just wondering if you could expand on that, and is that also the reason why the executive session is talking about 2 properties that you own? The
We're
rent
taking
revenue
public
decrease,
comment.
the reason?
We're taking public comment, as I said at the beginning, Jonathan. People can offer public comment, and if there's a response that's deemed necessary by members of the board or the management, that will be done in writing in an appropriate time. This
Okay,
is not a
but-
question and answer period.
Okay, it's hard to comment on rent revenue when you don't know why it's decreased dramatically. I mean, the decrease is, it's more than the excursion fare increase. It was really just, I mean, I don't know why that can't be answered. Okay, I guess that was it. Thanks.
Thank you.
You have a few online. Nat Trumbull?
Thank you for including the RD 99 purchase. Or at least planning for 2026, beginning in April. I was unclear how this will be paid for, if it's part of the existing budget or if it's going to require monthly approval. I know last year you had a separate approval. How that, I just don't understand how you're paying for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Beth O'Connor?
Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, afternoon, whatever time it is there. A couple things. One is, I think there was a concerted effort to really wade through that advertising budget, realizing full well that it was less than 1% of the operating budget. It was just a place where there was possible opportunity to offset the $350,000 excursion increase, which is so nominal, but is so divisive. 2 things I want to point out. One is I don't think we can have a save accurately that same-day trippers are zero cost. Because I don't know if anybody's done the math, so I can't ask a question, so I'm going to give you the answer. It would require 82,000 people in the summer deciding they're going to make a last-minute same-day trip to Nantucket or the Vineyard to pay for the TV, the radio, and the billboards, which you guys have stated are directly outreach to same-day trippers. So 82,000 people would have to make that decision to make up for that money, just to be really clear on that number. But more importantly, I think as part of my journey through this, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Islanders. People were really wanting to talk about advertising. They wanted to understand it better. So I'm just going to encourage you. I'm not going to ask the question. I'm going to encourage you to say, perhaps we could have a small committee of outreach people understanding this budget better and have, what we would perceive as more transparency. Thanks.
Thank you. John?
Oh, I have.
Okay. If there's nothing further, at this point, we're going to go into, I'm going to read a statement because we're going to go into executive session. I'd like to I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session, discuss and approve the minutes of the authorities meetings in executive session on July 15, 2025, and August 5, 2025, and to review and discuss the authority's strategies with respect to the exchange, lease, or value of real estate and contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Because a public discussion of these matters may have a detrimental effect on the authority's negotiating bargaining position, these matters include: 1, consideration of the exchange, lease, or value of the following properties. Thomas Landers Road, Falmouth, Research Road in Falmouth, and the authority's employment contract with General Manager Robert Davis. Public disclosure of any more information with respect to these matters would compromise the purposes for which the executive session is being called. After the conclusion of the executive session, we will reconvene in public. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, comes to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And aye. It's passed unanimously. Thank you. We'll now take a break for 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes, we'll return in executive session. Thank you.
For everybody who's on the Zoom, we will keep the Zoom open with the video and audio off. So if you wish to see the conclusion of public session, you can stay on the line. Thank you.
Yes? Okay, we are now call the meeting back into public session.
You have to read the recording out.
Yeah, you've got announcements.
The which?
You have to read the recording out.
Again? Okay, we're back in public session. I'd like to inform everyone that Falmouth Community Television, FCTV, and Sean Driscoll are making audio and video recordings of today's meeting. Anyone making audio and video recording of the meeting, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon on the Zoom dashboard. Or if you're joining by telephone, pressing *9 on your keypad. When you're recognized, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Recording, Jason, Nikki, Louisa. That's all I have.
Okay, that's all you have. Okay, just a brief comment. The board has taken a vote. Parents will explain, tell you what the vote was. I'd like to start by saying the working group for the the general manager hiring committee worked very hard. I had said before that it was distressing that some very qualified people have dropped out of withdrawn from consideration after much diligence on their part as well as on our part. And given that it's extended the time frame necessary to make sure we hire the best general manager. And with that, a vote was taken. We now need to approve the vote in open session. Would you read the motion, Terrence?
So the motion is to extend the advisory role contract with Mr. Davis from his stepping down from the general manager role is now going to be, in lieu of October 31st, it's going to be December 31st of 2025.
Thank you. Thank you. And the reason for that, as I'm sure everyone is aware, is the time it will take to negotiate a contract, to hire an individual, and for that person to be on the ground and operating. So with that, it comes to a vote to accept that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Comes to a vote. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to
Did anybody
adjourn.
make the motion?
Oh,
He read the motion.
I will make a motion to.
Thank you.
Accept that.
Thank you, Sean.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sean.
I'll second.
Thank you. Made by Mr. Rainey, seconded by Mr. Jeffries. Comes to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now is there a motion?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for your time and for your participation.